Hi and welcome again to Seekers and Cynics. My name is Richard Bentley and this is Bodmin Road Church in Hull. And Seekers and Cynics is a weekly quick snapshot of the Christian faith, trying to answer your questions or explain the relevance, the truthfulness of Christianity. So if you get this in your inbox, do feel free to comment, to send questions back. We want it to be as interactive as possible. What I want to do this week and next week as we approach Christmas is do a couple of talks that are Christmas related. I did start a little series that we've done two of. If you've been following, you'll know I've done a couple of talks titled What Did Jesus Mean? Looking at some of the stuff that Jesus said and asking what did he mean. And we'll come back to that in New Year and pick up some more things that Jesus said. But as it's Christmas, I thought it'd be good to just take a little Christmas theme. What I want to do today is just take a step back from the Christmas story and just ask the question, can you believe it? Is it true? Angels, shepherds, strange kings or wise men or whatever they are, following a star that hovers over a stable. It all sounds a bit fairy tale to me, perhaps. Is it true? Can we trust it? A virgin birth? You know, there's lots of things in the Christmas story that are rather odd and rather strange, and that we might easily write off as the product of an ancient mind that really wasn't very clear about things. But I think what we should say to that is, well, not so fast. The minds of the ancient people were not any more gullible than we are. Okay, they didn't have modern science, but there were plenty of hard-headed, sceptical people back then. And there were plenty of people who knew how to investigate and look at evidence. So we shouldn't write off the ancient world as being somehow sort of unintelligent or easily deceived peasants. Yes, as I say, it wasn't a scientific world, but still, it was a world in which there were smart people. And if you read the Gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, particularly Luke I'm going to refer to today, it's perfectly clear to me that these are not unintelligent people. The very fact that they can write and that they can give us the Gospels that they've written. So I've said this so many times, if you're a skeptic of Christianity and you've not read the Gospels, you're not really being fair. If you're going to be a skeptic, at least know what it is you're being skeptical of. Go and have a read of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. If you then want to sort of dismiss it all, I will treat that position with much more respect. But I find so many people that I talk and debate with have not actually read the source material. And I would encourage you to go with an open mind and an open heart to those gospel stories and just think about it from first principles. And that's what I want to do today. I want to particularly look at the Christmas story in Luke and just ask the question, is this a true story? Is this true? Or is it fantasy or myth or lies or what is it? We have this document. We know that this document goes back, the basic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, they go back to the middle decades or late decades of the first century. So they're written probably 30 or 40 years after Jesus dies. And so they are contemporary. By all standards of ancient literature, the documents that we have are absolutely contemporary to the events. Are they true? What are they? And what I want to just help us do is think that through. I want to just say four things about Luke in particular, Luke's Christmas story. First of all, it has the setting of a true story. Myth and parable and fable and legend are all set in unreal worlds and fantasy worlds. But the Gospel of Luke is set very clearly and historically in the Roman world. Luke names the Roman Emperor Augustus. He names Herod, who we know about from other history. And we're told that Herod massacred the innocents. Well, we know that's exactly what Herod was like because he was a psychopath. We know that from other aspects of of history. Luke tells us about the governor Quirinus in Syria, and we know that he existed. All of Luke's people names and place names, they all match up. So the setting of this has the setting of a true story. Sure, some details are a bit tricky to piece together. That census, the second census, Luke says, historians struggled to place the exact date of that. There's some tricky bits and pieces, but that's not anything that you wouldn't expect from a piece of honest journalism that's committed to paper some decades after the events themselves. So it has the setting of a true story. Secondly, it has the motive of a true story. If you read the very opening words of Luke's Gospel, he actually says, we've heard all this, we've had this story of Jesus passed down to us, and he says, we've had it passed down to us from eyewitnesses, but therefore I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning in order to write an orderly account. Luke's motive, and that doesn't sound like a dishonest statement to me, is, he's heard this stuff. He's not an eyewitness of it himself, but he has gone and interviewed the eyewitnesses. It's clear to me he's spoken to Mary, the mother of Jesus. If you read those opening chapters of Luke, it has that feel of authentic journalism, somebody who has dug into the story to try and get the facts. So it has the motive of a true story. Thirdly, it has the genre, the broad ring of a true story. The Gospel of Luke, and even the Christmas story, it does not read like normal myth or fantasy or legend. It has a very earthy feel to it, a very down-to-earth feel with family details and small details of life that you just wouldn't expect to find in some sort of fantasy or mythical story. It has that feeling of earthly and earthy reality to it. Moreover, it's not got crazy things in that you'd expect in a piece of fiction. Now, you might say the virgin birth is crazy. We'll come back to that. But there were many Gospels written at the time that are called apocryphal Gospels. They've not found their way into the Bible, and that's because they do have crazy things. They have the baby Jesus, only a few hours old, being able to speak to his mother. They have what I call crazy miracle, nonsense miracle, clearly stupid stuff. The Gospels that are in the Bible, by contrast, yes, there is miracle, but it is measured. It is earthed. And there is no reason why, if this was what an almighty God chose to do, to step into this world, on one occasion in history, I'm not saying virgin birth is some, common thing, but there is no reason why, if the living God wanted to do that he should not make exception to the normal rules of biology on this one occasion. So for me, I don't find the miracle, even as a scientist by training, I don't find the miracle element off-putting. But the broad ring of this story, the absence of really weird stuff and the presence of very normal earthy details gives me that ring of truth and that genre of a true story. Finally, this story has elements, and this is telling, that you would not put in a made-up story. The opening chapters of Luke's Gospel are mainly the story of Mary and Elizabeth, the mother of Jesus, and her cousin Elizabeth. Women in that culture, their testimony was not accepted in court. Their lives bore no relevance in that world. It was a patriarchal, misogynist world. Luke gives so much space to these two women in the opening chapters of his Gospel. You simply would not do that if you were writing a piece of fiction. The main characters would be male. The fact that these key characters here are the women just has that ring of truth. Moreover, Luke tells us that it was shepherds who were the first witnesses of this birth. Shepherds in that culture were the bottom of society's pile. They were the butt of everybody's joke. They were laughed at. They were looked down on. They were stigmatized as being, again, rather dirty, outcasts, unreliable. If you were writing a piece of fiction, the very last people you would paint into your story would be shepherds. Because everybody would laugh at that and say, well, yeah, shepherds, you know how reliable they are. Of course they were hallucinating. The fact that the shepherds are there again just gives me that ring of truth and suggests that Luke is writing things as they were, that he is not leaving out the embarrassing bits, nor is he adding anything extra, that he is simply telling the story as he understands it to have happened. My time has gone. Those are some of my reasons why I accept the Christmas story as having an earth in history, as being an historical thing and not just a piece of somebody's fiction or fantasy or delusion. I'll see you next week.